Hello and welcome back to my channel. We are in day 5 of Mule developer training in depth. So today we are going to cover all these topics. As the topics will be more, there might be multiple videos for day 5. You just go through them in sequence. So in this video, I will show you how to actually download Anypoint Studio, how to do settings about JDK, and we'll understand about Maven and directory structure of a Mule application in detail. So let us get started. Okay, so how to download Anypoint Studio? I'll just go to Google and search for Anypoint Studio download. Okay, I will take the first link and here I'll select the product selection as Anypoint Studio and Mule. Select the version latest, select the operating system, and give all the other details. You'll get a mail from Mulesoft which contains the download link. I have already downloaded this Anypoint Studio on my machine. It is nothing but a zip file. There is no special installation required for Anypoint Studio. You just have to extract it and use it. Okay, and one thing for extraction, don't extract using Windows Extractor. You use some tools like WinRAR or 7-zip or WinZip for extraction. If you're extracting with Windows Extractor, you will face a problem. Okay, so this extraction will take some time because this file is 1.9 GB. Let it take some time. Let me tell you one more thing. When we start Anypoint Studio for the first time, it will ask for something called as a workspace. So what I did is I created a folder called as workspace and I'm going to use this as a workspace. What is this workspace? Whatever projects we are going to create um, using Anypoint Studio, they will be created under this workspace. Okay, so I guess Anypoint Studio got extracted. Let me open it. Okay, it'll open. For the first time, whenever it opens, it'll ask me for the workspace. I'm going to give the previous folder as my workspace and launch it. Okay, yes, it asked for workspace. I'm giving this as my workspace. See here, under this workspace, there is nothing right now. If I click on launch, Anypoint Studio will create some metadata folders inside it. And what projects we're going to create next, they'll be saved under this workspace folder. Okay. For the first time, whenever Anypoint Studio is launched, we'll get a help window or quick start window. We don't need this window. We can close this. Okay. Now, here I can create a project. But before that, let me tell you, Mulesoft right now, as of today, it supports JDK 8 and JDK 11. If you are having any Java version above 11, when running Mule applications, you will face issues. So make sure that you have JDK 11 on your machine. I am not going to tell you how to install JDK 11. Please Google for JDK 11 and make sure that you have installed it. I have already installed Anypoint Studio, sorry, Java, and it is available in C program files, Java, JDK. This is my Java 11 or JDK 11 home directory. How to point this Anypoint Studio to that JDK? I will go to Window, Preference. Under Java, I will select Installed JRS. You can see here actually JDK 8 is already embedded into Anypoint Studio. Where is it actually? If you see inside Anypoint Studio plugins folder, under some folder, it is there. So I can say that JDK 8 comes embedded within Studio. If you don't do any changes, by default Anypoint Studio uses JDK 8. But I wanted to use whatever is the latest version supported by Mule. So I want it to be pointed to JDK11. How? I will click on add. I will select standard VM. Next, then I will paste here the folder. Remember, this is not up to bin directory. It is above bin directory. Finish. Then I want this JDK folder to be the default. So I will select this default. Now apply and close. So now you know how to make anypoint studio point to JDK11. Now let us create a new project. File, new Mule project. I can give a name to my project. I'll give it as first app. Now here you can see there is something called as runtime. It is asking in which Mule runtime you want to run your application. The latest version of Mule server is 4.5.1 EE. EE stands for Enterprise Edition. Okay, what is this Mule server? Actually, we are going to run our Mule applications inside a Mule server, or we'll deploy our Mule applications inside a Mule server runtime. Just like you deploy web applications inside a web server, we deploy Mule applications inside a Mule server runtime. The latest version is 4.5.1 EE Enterprise Edition. As you know, Enterprise Edition means you need a license. So if you're deploying your applications on a standalone Mule runtime, you need a license. But actually, with Anypoint Studio, this Enterprise Edition of Mule Server comes in embedded. It is coming as a plugin inside Anypoint Studio, and that is free for use. So Mule runtime comes as a plugin inside Anypoint Studio, and we are going to use it free. Anyways, nobody will be running production grade applications inside Studio. Studio is only for development. Okay. So if you want to work with any older version of Mule runtime also, you can click on install runtimes and select Anypoint Studio Enterprise runtimes and select whatever version you want. Click next, 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 finish. It will install the runtime. But I will right now work with 4.5.1 EE only, and I'm clicking on finish. So this will actually create a Mule project. But you need to understand one thing. Mule internally uses a tool called as Maven. It is nothing but Apache Maven. It is a build tool for any Java application. And of course, Mule application also is a Java application. Hey, don't worry. You don't need to learn Java or know Java to write a Mule application. But actually, Mule applications are finally Java applications. Don't worry. You'll understand more about how Mule internally uses Java later. But just understand that Maven is a tool for building any Java application, and Mule application also is finally Java application. Maven is used for building. Hey, what do I mean by building an application? Normally, if you're writing any Java application, you'll be writing your code inside a file with extension .java. After you compile that, you'll get a .class file. But there will be a lot of .class files, right? You need to bundle all of them into an archive and you prepare a jar file, right? So basically by using Maven, we can compile the Java classes, bundle them into jars. And not only that, Maven can be used for managing dependent libraries as well. Dependencies, we say. So let us see how Mule internal uses Maven for creating the project. Actually, this project is a Maven project. So let me minimize this. For every Maven project, there will be a file called as pom.xml. POM stands for Project Object Model. So I'll open this. And if I click on source, you can see this root tag is project. Remember, POM, P-O-M stands for Project Object Model. We describe our project as an object using this XML. So for every Maven project, there will be something called as group ID, artifact ID, and version. Combination of these three must be unique. So normally what we do is, as a group ID, we give reverse of our domain name. So actually my website name is lwww.in. I will reverse it in.lwww. So it is unique. Fine. The artifact ID is nothing but the project name and version. So these three combinations must be unique. Okay. Then what else you need to know about form.xml? Here under dependencies, there is a dependency. Here you can see there are dependencies configured, right? I told you that Maven can be used for managing dependencies. Here is a dependency HTTP connector. So actually my Java application might be dependent on other libraries. I just need to declare, okay, what all dependent jars I want for my project. Maven will automatically download these dependencies. Download and save where? So actually all the downloaded dependent jars will be downloaded on a local repository. What is a local repository? In my C drive, users, Sivaprasad. This is my users home directory on Windows. If you are using Linux or Mac, you know what is your home directory. Normally, under users home directory, there will be a folder called as .m2. Under that repository, this is actually called as a local Maven repository. So Maven will download all the dependencies and keep them under this directory. Okay. Now, if you see org.mule.connectors, this is a dependency group ID. So I will go into org. Wait, in M2 repository org.mule.connectors. Mule HTTP connector. Is the artifact name Mule HTTP connector? Yes. Under that, the version 1.8.0. Under that, you will see the jar file. So Maven will automatically download all the dependencies and save them in a local repository folder. What is the local repository? Under your user directory, under .m2 repository. This is the local repository by default. They'll be downloaded and stored here. Now you might ask me, hey, from where will Maven download? What are all the repositories? Actually, you can see repositories tag, and here you can see a repository URL. This is a URL at which from which Maven will download the dependency. This is actually called as remote repository. Maven will download the dependencies from remote repository and keep them inside local repository. Okay. And then you can see here in the project under HTTP. Actually, under dependencies, we have HTTP connector dependency, right? Corresponding to it, you can see for under the project, HTTP dependency is added. And actually, the main jar file name is the one ending with dash mule dash plugin jar. So this is the actual dependency, but this dependency is having other dependent jars. So all those are downloaded and automatically added here. Similarly, here you can see a sockets connector dependency. Correspondingly, here you can see sockets connector dependency. This is the main jar ending with dash mule dash plugin, and this is dependent on other jars. All those are added. So in Maven, whenever you are using Maven, you just declare dependencies in the dependencies tag. Automatically, they will be downloaded and added to your project. All right. So that is sufficient for you to understand about what is Maven. Let's now discuss the directory structure of this Mule project. Firstly, let us see under src main Mule there is an XML first tab.xml. Oh, Once I open, it doesn't look like an XML. Actually, at the bottom, if you see, there are three tabs. If you click on configuration XML, you will see the XML view of the file. The root tag is Mule, and this tag is belonging to this namespace, and this is the XSD. So if you click on configuration XML tab, you can see the XML view. And if you click on message flow tab, it is actually a graphical view. Actually, we are not going to create or type XML in Mule. Automatically, the XMLs will be generated. How? Once I click on message flow tab, you can see on the right side a Mule palette. This Mule palette has two parts. One is left side. It contains the modules. You can see there's a module called as HTTP module. Do you remember in pom.xml we added HTTP connector as dependency and sockets connector as dependency? The same things are nothing but modules. HTTP module, sockets module. And if I select HTTP module, this listener is a component of HTTP module. All these are components of HTTP module. Sockets module, if I select, all these are components of sockets module. And under core module, there are a lot of components. Normally, what we do is we select a module, drag and drop inside the palette. Automatically, you can see that a graphical flow is generated. And if I click on configuration XML, I can see the XML also generated automatically. So we don't write XML in Mule actually. We just drag and drop and do the configurations. So if I want to configure this HTTP listener, I can select it and I can configure. Automatically behind the scenes, XML will be automatically generated. Very good, right? Okay, we'll see a lot of things going on further. So you understood that in this XML, we write the configurations. So I'll right now delete this. Right click and delete. Let us see in XML, is it deleted? Yes, it got deleted. Fine. Under SRC main mule, we create XMLs and these XMLs contain our application logic. There can be multiple XMLs also. I will right click on SRC main mule, new mule configuration file. I can give a file name A. So this XML will be created. So one mule application can contain multiple such XMLs. Under this SRC main Java, if you have any Java code within your Mule application, you will be writing all Java classes under SRC main Java. Fine. Under SRC main resources, you will keep any configuration files related to Mule. So you can see there's a file called as log4j2.xml. Along with it, actually we will be writing a lot of other configuration files also. We will see later. But what is this log4j? Actually, if you are from Java background, you might be knowing log4j is a logging framework used by Java application. And Mule also internally uses log4j for logging. If I just open this, you can see importantly, what is the log file name configured? sys:/mule home. This will actually evaluate to Mule runtime home directory. File separator means slash logs slash first app.log. First app is nothing but the application name. So this is the path at which logs will be written. And there is other configuration which you need to know about log4j. We will see it later. Just understand that under SRC main resources, we will write some configuration files specific to Mule, and log4j is one of the configuration files. SRC test Java will contain any test cases written using JUnit framework. Okay. And SRC test resources contains the configuration files specific to test. Okay. And SRC test munit contains munit test cases. What is this munit? Munit is a Mule specific unit testing framework where we actually write test cases using this munit framework. Don't worry, we are going to write a lot of test cases going on further. Just understand that test cases, MUnit test cases will go into this folder. So that's the directory structure of a Mule application. Now let us create a small application in Mule for today. Okay. So what I want is in Mule, I want to configure my Mule application to use a component called as HTTP listener. I want my HTTP listener to listen on port 8081 and at a path /hello. We're going to write a simple hello world example right now, but understand all the concepts now. So if I configure something like HTTP listener, this will start listening on this port 8081 and at this path /hello. So then how do we give a request now to this listener? HTTP :/ the host name. In this case, I'll give localhost colon. The port 8081 is a port which I configured /hello. Now, through any HTTP client, if I give this request, what will happen? HTTP request will be sent, right? HTTP request will contain two parts: HTTP headers and body. Now, if I'm giving a HTTP get request doesn't contain any body, right? So if I give a get request, the request will go to HTTP listener. A request will contain headers and an empty body right now. What this listener will do in Mule is it will create an object called as Mule message. This is a Mule message object. Mule message contains two parts: attributes and payload. So which component will create this Mule message? This listener will create a Mule message. What it will do is all the headers will be populated into attributes. Payload whatever or the body whatever is coming in request will be populated into payload. So it will be created. And then this Mule message will be wrapped inside one more object called as Mule event. Mule event along with Mule message, it also contains something called as vars. Vars actually is a map which contains key value pairs. Initially, whenever HTTP listener created this Mule event, this vars will be empty. I'll tell you later how we can store key value pairs inside this one. So HTTP listener will create this Mule event whenever we give a request. Now, if I have given a get request, the payload will be actually empty. Right. What I want to do is I want to transform this Mule message and add payload as hello world. A simple, I want the payload to become hello world. So I need to use a component called as a transformer. There are a lot of transformers in Mule. A simple transformer is set payload transformer. I will configure it such that it will set the payload as hello world. So the Mule message contains payload as hello world right now. Okay. Next, I want to configure a component called as logger, which I want to log actually the current payload. The same Mule event comes to next component also. Once the control is here, I want my logger to write a payload as a log. That's all. I want to configure these three components in a Mule application. As the message will be flowing from one component to another like this step by step, we say that by using all these components, we create a flow. Message will flow through all the components. So we say that we create a flow in Mule. A flow is nothing but a component which contains multiple components inside it. right? So the message will flow through all these components. That's why this entire thing is called as a flow. I want to create a flow which contains these three components. Let us see how we can create it next.